Any reaction to the verdict, Mr. Pacheco?
Well, we're appreciative of the time that these jurors put in on such a serious case. This was a trafficking operation through Montgomery County that was responsible for 27 kilos of heroin. Each time they brought a load through $1 million worth of heroin and 100,000 doses. By taking this off, the detectives kept a lot of heroin out of the hands of users, and that's very important when we are facing an epidemic like we are in heroin overdoses. So I applaud the work of the detectives. They work closely with the federal counterparts in New York and in Atlanta, Georgia. They came in, we all worked together on it, and I think it's a good example of how law enforcement works together to combat drug trafficking.
Clearly, we're disappointed with the verdict. The jury found him not guilty of being part of a corrupt organization. That is certainly consistent with the defense. Unfortunately, they found him guilty of the other charges, the possession with intent to deliver, the conspiracy, and the delivery charges. So even though it's to an extent a split verdict, it certainly is not a split verdict that is favorable to the defendant, my client, Mr. Pacheco. I do find it interesting that the jury was not convinced that he was part of this criminal organization because they found him not guilty of that charge. I do believe that that is consistent with the jury concluding that he was a mule. As I told them the evidence would show in the opening statement and throughout the case, that he was a mule. He was not deriving income from this activity he is involved in, which was one of the elements that needed to be proven on the corrupt organizations. But nonetheless, I think that if the jury was persuaded that there was duress at some point, they may have been swayed by the fact that he never went to the police, which quite frankly I think that's rather unrealistic under the circumstances when you're talking about a violent Mexican drug cartel. But that is one of the criteria that's in the jury instruction. So it was a hard-fought case. I believe that there are some very legitimate appeal issues, and we'll be continuing to fight this case on an appeal after sentencing.